What celebration were you tricked into attending? I was serving coffee when a customer asked, will you be my date to a wedding on Saturday? Before I could respond, he started to explain. My family won't stop asking why I'm 28 and still single. I don't want to deal with them. There'll be free drinks and expensive gift bags, he explained. Sure, why the hell not? What he didn't tell me was that the groom was Austin Coleman, my daughter's dad who left when she was diagnosed and insisted on putting her in a home. On Tuesday, Kevin came to the cafe when my shift ended with a big black binder. So, I should probably know basic stuff about my girlfriend. He paused. That's when he noticed the crayon drawings on my apron. You have kids? A daughter, Amelia. She's 6. I waited for the awkward silence. It never came. Does Amelia like weddings? She's autistic and mostly nonverbal, so she's never been to one. Would she want to come? I stared at him. She doesn't do well with strangers. Let's try. I laughed at him and told him to focus. I don't know what came over me that night when I went home. Either way, I found myself asking Amelia if she wanted to come to the wedding. She lifted her communication card. No. I sent a photo of it to Kevin. Told you so. He responded asking, what if she picks the dress herself? I asked Amelia. This time she lifted the yes card and clapped her hands together. Something I'd only seen her do for the big celebrations in life, like getting to eat dessert before dinner. Then came Wednesday at Nordstrom, dress shopping. Amelia death gripped my hand, already overwhelmed by the lights and sounds, until she saw it, a princess dress that looked like it was made for her. She let go of me and walked straight to it, completely entranced. The saleswoman started explaining sizes. Amelia's humming began, pre-meltdown warning. Kevin knelt beside her. We'll take the purple one, he told the saleswoman. Sir, we don't have her size. Who do I call to special order it? Kevin spent 2 hours negotiating with staff, learning Amelia's communication cards, until they special ordered the exact purple shade she wanted. I caught him in the parking lot Googling how to communicate with autistic children. You don't have to. I want to get this right. Thursday, his apartment. We're practicing family introductions when his sink exploded. I was already under the cabinet with my wrench. He looked at me like I had just done a backflip. My fake girlfriend's a genius. The way he said fake made my stomach turn. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept replaying how Amelia had watched us from the doorway, clutching her purple dress like a security blanket. The next day, I was wiping down tables when my phone rang. It was Amelia's teacher. She signed happy today, for the first time ever. She kept pointing at her purple dress in her cubby. Kevin overheard from his usual corner table. I laughed at how fast he had dried up the tears that were so obviously forming in his eyes. He quickly filled the silence. Nail salon? All 3 of us? My treat. I held up a cheesy thumbs up. When the technician reached for Amelia's hands, I braced for the meltdown. But Kevin had an ace up his sleeve. He showed her his phone with a picture of the purple sparkles. Amelia let him hold her hand during the manicure. I stayed up until 3 a.m. Googling how to explain temporary people to autistic children. I was hoping the problem would somehow go away by itself. Then came Saturday morning, the day of the wedding. Kevin arrived with a handmade sensory bag, noise-canceling headphones he'd painted purple, her favorite shows downloaded on an iPad, the works. When did you have time for all this? Couldn't sleep. I had to stop myself from asking if I was the reason he couldn't sleep. That's when Amelia appeared in her purple dress, somehow already wearing the headphones. She stood there for a moment, then started bouncing on her toes, her happy stim. Kevin immediately started bouncing with her, both of them giggling. Ready, princess? He asked. She signed yes and happy and purple, all in a row, then grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the door. Sigh. After 20 minutes, his family estate appeared. Kevin's mom rushed to our car. Finally! And a grandbaby too! Amelia hugged her. I'd never even seen her hug my mom before. Kevin's mom started crying. Oh my goodness, aren't you precious? His dad appeared with a camera, already taking photos. We've been waiting so long for Kevin to bring someone. Mom, give them space to breathe. Kevin laughed, but his hand found the small of my back. It felt protective, real. His cousins swarmed us next. An aunt pinched my cheeks, said something about finally getting great-grandkids. Everyone wanted photos. We moved through the gardens toward the cocktail hour. Amelia ran ahead, basket swinging, Kevin's teenage cousin teaching her to throw flower petals. And that's when I saw it. Right across the lawn was Austin Coleman in his suit, laughing with the best man. My Amelia ran straight to him, arms open, calling Data, the first word she'd ever spoken, to the man who'd signed away his rights. And I guess he hadn't changed, because he just kept walking toward the bar, laughing louder at whatever his best man said. Data! Amelia called again, stumbling in her purple dress. That's when the meltdown hit, full force. Amelia threw herself on the ground, screaming, hitting herself, her purple dress tearing at the seams. I dropped to my knees and scooped Amelia up while she thrashed and screamed. Her fists kept hitting her own face and chest. The purple dress ripped more with every violent movement. Kevin was already digging through the sensory bag with one hand while using his body to block everyone's stares. He shoved the noise-canceling headphones at me, and I fought to get them on Amelia's head while she twisted away. People were backing up and whispering and pointing their phones at us. Kevin grabbed my elbow and pulled us toward the side of the building. Amelia's screams got louder and more desperate as we moved. Her whole body went rigid in my arms. Kevin spotted a small alcove near where the catering staff was setting up and steered us there. His hand stayed firm on my back while I struggled to keep hold of my daughter. The headphones finally stayed on, and I wrapped my arms tight around her. She rocked hard against me and made these awful moaning sounds. Kevin already had the iPad out with her favorite cartoon loaded. He held it right where she could see the screen while I kept rocking her. I whispered over and over that she was safe even though I knew she couldn't hear me through the headphones. Her breathing was so fast and shallow I worried she might pass out. My arms ached from holding her so tight but I couldn't let go. After what felt like forever but was probably 5 minutes, her screaming shifted to heavy breathing. The hitting stopped and she just whimpered and shook. Kevin's mom appeared in the doorway with tears running down her face. She started to step toward us but Kevin physically moved in front of her. He shook his head and she backed up but didn't leave. The wedding planner showed up right behind her looking stressed and angry. You need to move further away because you're disrupting the photographer, she said. Kevin turned to face her completely. We need this space right now and you'll have to work around us. The wedding planner's face went red, but Kevin didn't move. Through the window, I could see Austin at the bar still laughing with his groomsmen. He hadn't even looked back when Amelia called for him. My whole body started shaking with rage, but I couldn't do anything about it. I shifted Amelia so she couldn't see out the window. Kevin knelt down beside us after the wedding planner stormed off. Austin is marrying my cousin, he said quietly. My stomach dropped and I felt like I might throw up. Austin was about to become part of Kevin's extended family. The betrayal burned in my chest even though Kevin probably had no idea. He looked as shocked as I felt. I checked Amelia's dress dress and saw huge tears at the seams and hem. The purple fabric was shredded from her thrashing on the ground. Kevin immediately took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her like a cape. She actually grabbed the edges and pulled it tighter around herself. "We should leave," Kevin said. Then he asked if I wanted him to go talk to Austin first. "No," I told him. Any confrontation would just make things worse for Amelia, who was finally starting to calm down. Her breathing was getting more normal and the whimpering had mostly stopped. Kevin's mom was still hovering nearby and came closer when things seemed calmer. "I'm so sorry for overwhelming you all earlier," she said softly. Then she added that she had just assumed Amelia was Kevin's daughter. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "This is all pretend," I said. Her whole face fell and she looked between Kevin and me with confusion. Kevin stood up and gently guided his mom away from us. I could hear him explaining something to her in a low voice but couldn't make out the words. Amelia's body was finally relaxing against me. She kept Kevin's jacket pulled tight and her eyes stayed fixed on the iPad screen. The wedding music started playing from the main area. Through the window I saw guests starting to move toward the ceremony space. Austin walked past with his groomsmen, still laughing about something. He never even glanced our way. My hands were shaking as I held Amelia. Kevin came back and sat on the floor next to us. He didn't say anything, just sat there while we all tried to breathe normally again. More family members kept walking past the alcove and peeking in at us. Some looked concerned and others looked annoyed that we were causing a scene. Amelia made a small sound and signed home with her free hand. Kevin saw it too and immediately started gathering our things. He helped me stand while I kept Amelia in my arms. She was heavy, but I couldn't put her down yet. There's something really odd about Kevin showing up with that sensory bag full of purple things he supposedly made overnight. How did he know exactly what Amelia would need at a wedding when he just met her days ago? We made our way toward the parking lot with Kevin clearing a path through the arriving guests. His mom followed us all the way to the car. She kept apologizing and asking if there was anything she could do. Kevin opened the car door for me and I got Amelia buckled in. She kept signing home over and over. Her purple nail polish was chipped from where she'd been hitting herself. The dress was completely ruined, but she wouldn't let go of Kevin's jacket. I got in next to her while Kevin talked to his mom outside. Through the window, I could see her crying and him hugging her. When he got in the driver's seat, his eyes were red too. We drove away from the estate in complete silence except for Amelia's cartoon playing softly on the iPad. The cartoon helped keep Amelia calm as Kevin pulled around to the back of the estate instead of leaving through the main gate. He parked near some smaller buildings away from all the wedding noise. Amelia had stopped screaming, but she was still making these small whimpering sounds that broke my heart. Her hands kept pulling at the torn purple fabric of her dress. I realized we couldn't just leave yet because she needed more time to calm down completely. Kevin understood without me having to explain and said there was a staff cottage we could use for a while. He led us down a stone path that curved away from where all the guests were gathering for the ceremony. Amelia walked between us, but she gripped my hand so tight my fingers went numb. Her other hand clutched Kevin's jacket around her shoulders like it was the only thing keeping her safe. The path was quiet except for our footsteps on the gravel. Then the best man came stumbling around the corner, clearly drunk already even though it was barely noon. He saw us and started laughing about the scene we'd caused back there. Kevin stepped right in front of us and told him to walk away now. His voice was harder and colder than I'd ever heard it before. The best man muttered something rude, but he left. Kevin unlocked the cottage door and we went inside where it was cool and dark and quiet. Amelia immediately went to the corner and sat on the floor, rocking back and forth while humming her anxiety song. Kevin went to get her some water from the small kitchen. That's when his mom appeared in the doorway, having followed us from the main house. She cornered me while Kevin was in the other room and demanded to know what was really going on. She asked why her son would lie about having a girlfriend and who we really were. I was too tired to make up another story, so I told her the truth. Kevin had hired me to be his fake date because he was sick of her asking why he was still single at 28. Amelia wasn't his daughter, and we weren't really together. The cottage went completely silent except for Amelia's humming from the corner. Kevin's mom's face changed from confusion to hurt to something I couldn't read. Kevin came back with the water and saw his mom standing there with tears in her eyes. He set the glass down and told her he was sorry for lying, but he wasn't sorry for protecting us today. He said she needed to give us space right now and think about why he felt like he had to lie in the first place. She actually left without arguing, which surprised me. A few minutes later, someone knocked on the door. It was the wedding planner looking stressed and holding her clipboard. She said the ceremony was starting soon and asked if we could please stay in the cottage until it was over to avoid any more disruptions. I wanted to argue, but I was too exhausted, and honestly being hidden away felt better than facing all those people again. Through the window, we could hear them testing the sound system for the ceremony. The wedding march started playing, and Amelia immediately covered her ears even with the noise-canceling headphones on. She started rocking faster and making distressed sounds again. Kevin quickly pulled out his phone and showed her the video of purple sparkles he'd saved earlier. She focused on the screen instead of the overwhelming music outside. The sparkles reflected in her eyes as she watched them swirl and dance on the tiny screen. We sat there on the cottage floor for maybe 20 minutes while the ceremony happened outside. Then the door opened and Austin walked in wearing his wedding suit. He looked right through Amelia like she wasn't even there and said congrats on managing her so well, like she was a problem to be managed instead of a person. Then he turned and left before I could say anything. I stood there shaking with anger while Amelia stared at the empty doorway. She kept looking at where he'd been standing and signing something I didn't recognize. Kevin tried to distract her with the sparkle video again, but she pushed the phone away. I told them I needed to use the bathroom and locked myself in the small powder room. My hands were shaking, so bad I could barely turn on the faucet. I splashed cold water on my face and tried to do the breathing exercises my therapist had taught me. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin asking if I was okay. I typed back yes, even though it was a lie. I needed these few minutes alone to pull myself back together. The mirror showed my ruined makeup and red eyes. I could hear Kevin talking softly to Amelia in the other room, telling her about all the purple things they'd see on the way home. His voice was gentle and patient, even though this whole disaster was my fault for agreeing to come. I fixed my makeup as best I could with shaking hands. When I came back out, Amelia had fallen asleep on the small couch with Kevin's jacket still wrapped around her. He was sitting on the floor next to her, one hand resting protectively on her arm so she'd know he was there if she woke up scared. I watched him pull out his phone and start showing Amelia pictures of purple flowers while she traced the shapes with her finger. His voice stayed soft and steady as he talked about purple butterflies and purple cars and purple candy candy while she slowly relaxed against the couch cushions. He mentioned something about Austin not being able to make any legal claims since he'd signed away his rights years ago, and my chest loosened just a little bit. I grabbed the car keys from the table and headed for the door to check if we could leave yet, but when I got to the valet stand, the whole area was packed with arriving guests in fancy clothes. The attendant shook his head before I even asked and pointed to the line of cars still waiting to drop people off. Kevin appeared behind me and counted at least 20 more cars in line, which meant we were stuck for another hour at least. I wanted to scream, but I just nodded and walked back to the cottage where Amelia was starting to wake up. Kevin disappeared without saying anything, and I assumed he was going to the bathroom, but 20 minutes later he came back carrying a small white box. He'd gone all the way to the main kitchen and somehow convinced them to cut a piece from the purple layer at the bottom of the wedding cake that hadn't been served yet. Amelia's eyes went wide when she saw the purple frosting, and she signed happy for the first time since the meltdown, which made my eyes burn. The ceremony music started playing outside, and I could hear Kevin's mom's voice on the cottage porch talking loudly about something. Kevin stepped outside and their voices got quieter, but I could still make out bits about how image wasn't everything, and people mattered more than appearances. His hands were shaking when he came back inside, and he kept flexing his fingers like he was trying to get them to stop. His dad showed up a few minutes later, and they stepped into the corner near the window where they thought I couldn't hear them. Kevin was explaining how he'd only asked me to be his date to avoid all their matchmaking attempts at the wedding, and it hit harder than I expected, even though I knew this was just a business arrangement from the start. The cottage door opened, and Kevin's teenage cousin walked in carrying a small purse. She didn't say anything, just knelt down next to Amelia and started pulling safety pins from her bag to fix the torn seams in the purple dress. Her hands worked quickly and carefully while Amelia watched with fascination as the dress came back together piece by piece. We'd just finished when the door slammed open and a man in an expensive suit stormed in complaining about how we were causing drama at his daughter's wedding. He threatened to call security if we didn't leave the cottage area immediately and started pulling out his phone. Kevin stood up slowly and reminded him whose family owned this estate and that we had every right to be in the guest cottage. The man's face turned red, but he left without another word. Kevin made 3 phone calls in quick succession and within minutes had secured the cottage for us for the entire evening without any apologies or explanations. He told me we could stay as long as we needed, and even though I hated needing his protection, I was grateful for it. Amelia had moved to the window and was looking out when she suddenly started rocking back and forth, which meant she'd seen something upsetting. I looked over her shoulder and saw Austin walking past with his new bride, both of them laughing at something. Kevin quickly pulled the curtains closed and dumped his entire wallet on the coffee table, asking Amelia to help him sort everything by color. She immediately started separating the credit cards from the cash and the business cards, organizing them into neat piles while her breathing slowed down. We watched through a crack in the curtains as guests started filing toward the ceremony area, and Kevin pulled up a map of the estate on his phone. He traced a path with his finger that went through the service hallways and kitchen areas that would get us to the valet stand without running into any wedding guests. Amelia's dad shows up wearing his wedding suit and talks about her like she's not even there. That's making me really curious about his past with them and why he gave up his rights. The vows would start in about 10 minutes, which meant everyone would be focused on the ceremony and we could slip out without anyone noticing. I gathered our things while Kevin helped Amelia put on her shoes and wrapped his jacket around her shoulders again. The purple cake box went into my purse along with the iPad and headphones he'd brought. We waited until we heard the officiant's voice echo across the lawn before making our move. The service hallways were empty, except for a few staff members who barely looked up from their phones as we passed through. Amelia's grip on my hand loosened as we moved away from the noise, and I felt her breathing start to slow down against my shoulder where I was carrying her now. We made it to a small staff cottage near the back of the property where Kevin had spotted an open door earlier and ducked inside to wait out the ceremony. The room had old couches and a coffee table covered in magazines from 3 years ago, plus a shelf with some kids' books that looked like they'd been left behind by staff members' children over the years. I set Amelia down on the couch, and she immediately curled into a ball with Kevin's jacket still wrapped around her like a blanket. That's when footsteps echoed in the hallway, and the best man appeared in the doorway, looking less drunk than before, but still swaying slightly. "Austin wants to clear the air with you later," he said, while staring at me like I was some kind of problem that needed solving. I told him there was nothing to clear and Austin should stay away from us, but he just shrugged and wandered back toward the ceremony. Amelia started whimpering again, and Kevin pulled out his phone to distract her, but she grabbed it from his hands and started swiping through it herself until she found the purple sparkle video he'd shown her at the nail salon. The sparkles filled the screen, and for the first time all day, she actually giggled. A real honest laugh that made both Kevin and me freeze and look at each other with relief washing over both our faces. The tension that had been crushing my chest since Austin walked past her finally started to ease up just a little bit. While we waited for the ceremony to end, Kevin picked up one of the kids' books from the shelf and started reading it to Amelia, who scooted closer to him on the couch until she was leaning against his side with his jacket still around her shoulders. The book was about a purple butterfly which seemed perfect, and she traced the pictures with her finger while he read in this soft voice I'd never heard him use before. I tried not to think about how natural this looked with the two of them sitting there like they'd done this 100 times before. Amelia suddenly looked up at Kevin and said, "Dada," so quietly, I almost thought I imagined it, but my heart completely stopped in my chest. Kevin didn't miss a beat though, and just gently said, "Kevin," while pointing to himself, and she stared at him for a long moment before turning back to the book like nothing had happened. The ceremony music got louder outside, which meant they were probably doing the recessional, and we needed to move soon if we wanted to avoid the crowd heading to cocktail hour. We gathered our things again and started making our way through the service hallways toward the parking area with Amelia walking between us now, holding both our hands like she'd done it forever. The valet line was completely backed up with guests trying to leave early or move their cars, and we ended up waiting behind some tall decorative hedges while Amelia sat on a stone bench nearby. She was getting sleepy now with that post-meltdown exhaustion hitting her hard, and she leaned against me with her eyes half closed and her purple dress all wrinkled and torn at the hem. That's when Austin appeared around the hedge looking perfect in his wedding suit while his new bride was still taking photos somewhere. He walked straight toward us with this controlled look on his face and said we needed to talk about this situation and what I was trying to pull by bringing Amelia here. His voice was low and measured like he was the reasonable one, and I was causing problems at his wedding. I kept my hand on Amelia Amelia's back, feeling her breathing against my side, while he stood there acting like we were the ones who'd done something wrong. He started explaining how his family had pressured him to leave, and how scared he'd been about having a disabled child like that somehow made everything okay. I told him he'd made his choice when he signed those papers giving up his rights, and he didn't get to rewrite history now, just because seeing her made him uncomfortable. Kevin stepped forward then, and positioned himself between Austin and us, telling him the conversation was over in this voice that didn't leave room for argument. Austin looked like he wanted to fight about it, but something in Kevin's face made him take a step back instead. Before walking away though, Austin had to get one last dig in saying I was clearly after Kevin's money now, and that some things never change. The words hit exactly where he meant them to, but I kept my face neutral for Amelia's sake, even though my hands were shaking. That's when Amelia suddenly went quiet and pointed at something behind me. A waiter was carrying this huge purple flower arrangement past us to set up for the reception. She signed purple and then pretty, with her little hands still wet from tears. It was such a normal moment after all that chaos that I had to bite my lip to keep from crying myself. Kevin scooped her up before I could move and started walking toward the parking area, while his family just stood there watching us leave. The valet took forever to bring Kevin's car around while Amelia kept signing purple over and over at every purple thing she could spot. We got her buckled into her car seat and she was already rubbing her eyes by the time we pulled out of the estate. Her purple dress was torn at the waist and covered in grass stains, but she held onto the fabric like it was still the most beautiful thing in the world. Kevin drove with one hand on the wheel and kept checking the rearview mirror to watch her. She fell asleep before we even hit the main road, and I finally felt like I could breathe again. We didn't talk much on the drive except when Kevin asked if we should stop for food, and I shook my head. When we got closer to my apartment, he cleared his throat and said we probably needed to figure out what happens next, but maybe not tonight. I nodded and told him we should probably be honest with each other from now on about everything. He agreed and helped me carry Amelia inside without waking her up. The next morning was rough. Amelia woke up saying Dada while eating her cereal, and then again when I was brushing her hair. She followed me to the bathroom and stood outside the door saying it over and over. When I dropped her at the school, her teacher pulled me aside and said she'd been clinging to the staff all morning and had already cried twice. Kevin texted around noon asking if we needed anything, and I told him we were fine, but he showed up at my door anyway with a whole bag of new sensory stuff he'd ordered overnight. There were new fidget toys and weighted blankets and these special headphones that looked even better than the purple ones from yesterday. He asked if maybe we should give Amelia some space, but I told him she might actually need things to stay consistent right now. He stayed for dinner and Amelia let him help with her bedtime routine, which never happens with anyone. Monday at work, I kept checking my phone. Amelia's teacher texted that she'd signed purple and happy a bunch of times during circle time, but also had 2 meltdowns when other kids got too close. It was exactly what I expected after everything that happened over the weekend. That evening after Amelia went to bed, I sat at my laptop and typed out an email to Austin. I kept it simple and cold, just stating that he wasn't to approach or contact Amelia again since he'd legally abandoned her. My hands shook the whole time I was typing, but I made myself hit send. Austin replied within an hour with this short message saying he'd stay away, but warning me not to cause problems for his new marriage. The threat was pretty clear even though he tried to make it sound casual. I saved the email and forwarded it to myself just in case. Tuesday morning, I called 3 different family lawyers before finding one who could see me that week. The consultation was expensive, but I needed to know what Austin could and couldn't do legally. The lawyer looked over all my documents and confirmed Austin had 0 parental rights, but suggested I start documenting everything for our protection. She gave me a whole folder of forms to fill out and told me to keep records of every interaction. That night, I texted Kevin's mom asking if we could meet for coffee without Kevin there. I needed to control what his family thought before the story got twisted into something else. She agreed right away and suggested a place near Amelia's school so we could meet while she was in class. The coffee shop was mostly empty when I got there 10 minutes early, picking a corner table where I could watch the door. Kevin's mom walked in carrying a huge purse and wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy, and she sat down across from me without ordering anything first. She pulled off her sunglasses and I could see she'd been crying, her eyes all puffy and red. "I'm sorry we crowded you at the wedding," she said, then took a deep breath, "but I need to understand why you two lied to us." I started to explain about the fake date arrangement, but she held up her hand. Kevin already told me everything. She opened her purse and pulled out her phone, showing me a group text with about 30 family members. They're all asking questions and making up stories about what happened. She scrolled through messages about the screaming child and the drama at the reception. "I can help manage this if you'll let me." So the best man shows up to deliver Austin's message about clearing the air. I wonder if Austin sent him or if he took it upon himself to play peacemaker. I watched her delete a particularly nasty message from someone asking if Amelia was really Kevin's secret daughter. "We need allies in your family now," I admitted. She nodded and started typing a message to the group about how lovely it was to meet Kevin's girlfriend and her sweet daughter. That evening, Kevin showed up at my apartment with Chinese takeout, and we sat on my couch while Amelia watched her tablet in her room. "We need to talk about this whole fake thing," he said, setting down his chopsticks. I knew this conversation was coming, but it still made my stomach flip. "What are we actually doing here?" he asked. We talked for 2 hours, going back and forth about what made sense for Amelia, what we both wanted, how to handle his family. "Let's stop pretending," I finally said, "but we go slow. Focus on what Amelia needs first." He agreed, and we shook hands like we were making a business deal, which made us both laugh at how weird we were being. That weekend, we tried a simple park visit, just the 3 of us with no pressure or expectations. Amelia ran straight for the swings, and Kevin followed, asking if he could push her. She signed yes, and he started pushing gently, counting each push out loud, which made her giggle. For 20 minutes, everything felt normal and manageable, like maybe we could actually figure this out. Then Amelia wanted to go higher, and Kevin looked at me for permission before giving bigger pushes, and she was laughing so hard she was snorting. We got ice cream from a truck and sat on a bench, Amelia between us getting chocolate everywhere. That night after Amelia was asleep, I was scrolling through my phone when I saw it, a vague post from someone who'd been at the wedding. "Some people really know how to bring drama to a wedding with their mystery children," it said with an eye roll emoji. My chest got tight and I screenshot it to send to Kevin. "Mom's already on it," he texted back immediately. "She's handling the family gossip." Sure enough, the post disappeared within an hour. Sunday morning, Kevin's mom called him about family brunch at the country club, something they did every week. I heard him on speaker saying he had other plans, which made his mom ask what could be more important than family brunch. lunch. Having dinner with my girlfriend and her daughter, he said, and I could hear his mom go silent on the other end. He showed up at 5 with groceries and cooked spaghetti while Amelia watched from her spot at the kitchen table, signing noodles over and over. We ate dinner together and Amelia actually tried a bite of garlic bread, which was huge since she usually only ate 5 specific foods. Kevin did a little celebration dance that made her laugh and signed silly at him. After dinner, he helped with dishes while Amelia colored at the table and everything felt weirdly domestic and right. Late that night after Amelia was asleep and Kevin had gone home, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook. I couldn't protect her from every hurt in the world, but I could choose who we let get close to us. I started making a list of people who had shown they could respect Amelia's needs and not treat her like a problem to fix. The list was shorter than I wanted. Just my mom, Amelia's teacher, her speech therapist, and Kevin. Monday morning while I was getting Amelia ready for school, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail and listened to it while Amelia ate her cereal. Hi, this is Austin's wife. The message started and I almost deleted it right there. I'd really like to meet and understand the situation better. She left her number and asked me to call her back. I stared at my phone for a long time, not sure if this was an opportunity to get Austin to step up or just a trap that would hurt Amelia more. I didn't call back. Instead, that evening I sat with Amelia doing purple nail art stickers she'd picked out at the store. She hummed her happy hum while I carefully placed each sticker, her hands perfectly still for once. I took a picture of our matching nails and sent it to Kevin. Then I typed out "no more fake" and hit send. He replied right away with "real, slow," and I smiled at my phone like an idiot. For now, that was enough. Appreciate you all letting me throw these random questions out there. Always fun just wondering about stuff together. See you around. Subscribe for more content like this.